Hey, it's the Chief Bonding with Board Games, and this is a preview video of U-boat, the board game from Phalanx Games. This is out of Poland. Now, before we go any further, this is a pre-production copy, so anything can change. Art could change. There may not be a 3D version of the U-boat. Rules can even change. There was a whole disclaimer that, hey, it's pre-production. It's very far along. This thing is very polished for pre-production, but just so you know, things can change. Art can change. That being said, this is a World War II submarine simulation. If you're not familiar with it, the U-boats were phenomenal in World War I. This is World War II, so it's a Type 7C German submarine. They would go out and they would go into the Allied English shipping lanes and sink tons and tons of freight that was coming over. The Merchant Marine just got hammered by these guys. They were defended by frigates or ships of war who would then try to not only spot them, but then sink them. Depth charge them. If they're on the surface, hit them with cannon, everything. They dominated early in the war, and then they started to really get jammed and killed, especially by Allied airplanes as World War II progressed. That's the world you're diving into. These were tight-knit crews. This game feels tight-knit. Handles 1, 2, 3, or 4 players. The captain was king. The captain's king in this game. You have then the first officer, chief engineer will be busy. The navigator will be busy. And then each of them has like a little mini crew that they move around, track, keep control of. This does use an app. Think Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition. Again, the app isn't fully finished either, but think that kind of idea that you're a sub, you're out looking for targets. The fog of war comes from the app. The orders you do, the things that your crew do, will oftentimes be entered into the app. So damage is tracked by the app usually. Your location is tracked by the app. The target's movement and everything is tracked by the app. So know that coming in. It's also going to be an app-based game, and it should be up on Kickstarter, I think, within a couple weeks or so. I believe there's a definite date, but I'm not sure exactly when this video is going to go up, so I won't name it. But there'll be a Kickstarter for this, and I know you can get more information there. Let me go in and show you what this looks like. Pre-production copy looks like. There is a board, and currently there's a 3D sub as well. So you'll have little figures moving around on the sub, and then you'll have a technical kind of cutaway view of the sub as well that's showing you the interior, the guts of that sub, and where the key positions are and where your crew has to be to man this ship of war. Let's go take a look. All right, we're looking at U-boat, the board game. Now, this is all pre-production, so one more disclaimer. Anything you see here could be changed, upgraded, artwork different. The U-boat 3D sub could be different. Same with the figs, so take that into consideration. Now, as you're looking at the preview copy that I have here, the pre-production copy, you're going to see the 3D version of the sub right in here. You're going to see the board, which right now is just a piece of paper. It's not mounted, but it feels like the exact stuff that would be mounted on the cardboard. So I'll zoom into that. And you're going to see the 4 different rolls right over here. And I'm going to walk around and just show you what those are, talk a little bit about how they work, and then I'm going to pull back out and give you some thoughts. So first thing, we're looking from the captain's view, but I want to zoom in on this sub so you can get a good feel of the 3D portion of it. All right, so one of the nice things, and I'm going to tilt up my pan here in a second so you can see how easy it is to actually get your hand in and move your guys around. You'll notice the board even has wording that faces me, so you can see the control room. See if I can get my finger to come in. Sorry, it's going to be out of focus. The control room, you can see crew quarters. So that's actually facing me. Very nice touch. The engine room, so that if I'm sitting on this side of the board, everything's not upside down. Now, if I was sitting on the other side, you have verbiage that points out the same area. Now, I'm going to tip up. All right, I'm over the top, and you can see how skinny the top piece is, where you can even see a little bit of the blue captain's player pieces sticking out on the other side. So you can see there's no problem getting your hand in, moving your characters around. You can see there's the 88 gun. This mount back here would be for the 20 millimeter cannons. And you can just see they've kept that top piece extremely narrow, and it's pretty rugged. I'll get down and, well, I don't want to turn it, but maybe I can get down here and zoom in a little bit so you can see, but there's absolutely no problem getting your hand in there. I actually just set them along the side. Now, if they do get kind of shoved back in there, you got to kind of come in and hook them out with your finger, but no problem at all. And then you can see coming up on the conning tower, that's just the observation post and everything, where they're going to be up there trying to view or range in the enemy. So real quick, while I'm over top, again, I'm upside down for this angle. I have the chief engineer faced into the side cutaway view of the sub, and I'll switch around and show you that a little bit here in a second. But I wanted to just show you why I'm above, how everything kind of lays out. You can also see, like in crew quarters, you have the knife and the fork. The main individual with the navigator that makes food would need to be in that area when they're doing the food. And then you have the actual engine room. You have this is the diesels. Over here is where the batteries are if you're submerged. And then you have aft torpedoes and things of that nature. So the symbols also correspond to both orders that can be given and to specific things that certain players or their crew members are better at. So you can see with the chief engineer, you've got the wrench, and then you can see there's ballast tanks right here, and there's the running of the actual engines here. And then they'll flip over and show their watches, but I'll show you that in a second. All right, we're looking at the captain's board. So first of all, your first watch is down here, and you will see these are things like they've taken orders, okay? There's little spots, and it's maybe a little hard to see. Each one has 3 spots, if you can see it here. There's going to be when the captain issues mobilization or orders, and I'm going to go back to this, and then there's this morale track here, and I'm going to cover the cards in a second. The first thing is when you'll have a changing of a watch every 6 hours, and so when you go to the backup watch, in other words, the other ones are eating or sleeping, you simply flip this over. One of the things you're allowed to do is you can shed one of these action tokens that you've taken for your crew, just one, generally, when you flip to a new watch. Now, there are some things with the engineer we'll show later where there's some jobs that take a little longer, and the next watch literally takes over the job that your first watch guys were working on. But you'll see it's simply a flip. And again, pre-production, but I am going to guess that these are the faces of gentlemen that are working on the game. So you can see we have a captain on one side as chief, sailor, sailor. So the second watch has the master chief, which is the senior NCO. And then you have your senior sailor, sailor, sailor. All right, so these will simply flip back and forth from the watches, and you have similar areas that, because of the glare, you may not be able to see, but they have the exact same system that works down here, but you're flipping between your watches. The order track over here is your time track. So during the day, the app is running. This is an app-based game. I'll talk about the app in a bit. When you issue mobilization, you'll be able to then issue a mobilization order and say, hey, prepare to dive. On the 3D sub that I've just shown you, that now allows all the different players to move their guys around and get them in position. So the chief engineer is going to move his ideally 2 crewmen that are real good at the ballast, and they're going to go over to, I think it's the control room where ballast is off the top of my head, and they would move into that location. That would cost one of these orders. If I then said dive, so now I'm diving, I've got guys moving over, my engineers moving from the engines, the engine room where the diesels are, to the aft section where my batteries are. Maybe they're already there, they moved there in the mobilization, and now they're running those engines. But now as I dive, that's going to be another action. So if I was then flood the torpedo tubes, that would be another action, and then those things would take place. Now, everybody on their own board, ideally, you could use even your own sailors to do these things, but there will be, I'm trying to think, I think the first officer, I'm trying to remember. No, it actually is my, okay, I'll bring it up. So this sailor right here is real good about firing torpedoes, flooding the tubes, and all this kind of thing. Periscope up. So if you have the specialty, it's only going to cost you one of these in order to get her done. And you only got spots for 3. If it's not that individual specialty, it's going to cost 2. And if an area is filled, or it's even maybe that sailor's been wounded, they've got a permanent one there, they're going to be very limited in the actions they can take. So ideally, you want to have the sailor that's trained to do a thing, doing said thing. But you don't have to stick with that. A lot of times there's mechanical things that you want the chief engineer's team to be doing, but they're busy running the engines and being ready on the ballast, and you just put somebody else on the job. But a lot of it's going to be that the captain's going to issue orders, and then the crew's going to go out and start following those orders and using up their actions. Now, here's this nice thing on this track. Easy, medium, hard sets how many of these you're going to have during a day. If you go over, you can still issue orders, but now it's on the morale track. So if this was all maxed out and I still needed to issue some orders, maybe there's some flooding or there's a leak, I can now still issue orders, but it's on this morale track. And on this morale track, 2 things happen. This doesn't go back down unless I do things that raise morale, and you can have food that tastes better that raises morale. The captain has some orders here he can put out over the speaker system that will raise morale. Those can reverse it back. But as this starts to march, you got to be real careful, because you will lose the game if you max it out. It's basically the crew mutinies, surfaces the sub, and gives up to the allies. Now, when you hit these little pipe points, you end up having to flip a card over, and something bad happens. I don't think I can get it to, see if I can get it to, come on. All right, so you can see assign this card to a random sailor, and someone's got insomnia. They can't sleep. So now you've got a fatigue issue, and here's some things you can do. The first officer has some medical supplies that can then get rid of these. And what happens is these get assigned, they slide in, and they're double-sided, which is nice. You'll see this, and this is what I mean by double-sided, because it may go to a sailor on a certain watch or on a certain watch down here. This way you can see the problems that they have going on. This fatigue would come into here, and it uses up one of their spots. And that's one of the real nice touches, both with wounds, morale, special events that'll happen. That's where they'll sit, and you can just see the effects plainly. Also, before we move on off the captain, you have, again, come on. You have your orders that you can give. So you can see all your mobilization orders. I won't go into what all those are right now. That would get way too deep. All right. And then you can see requirements in order to pull these off. So, reload a torpedo at the bow or aft section. So you'd have to have crew there to do it, and you'd have to have 3 different crew that can pull this off. That was a very heavy and dangerous thing to do. So when you're going into battle, if you're planning on firing torpedoes, you got to stage your guys in a mobilization, and then they've got to be in that spot, the bow section, let's just say, in order to then, and have the room to take said actions. So when the order's given, they then execute. One other thing to show, there'll be, like this one said, assigned to a random sailor. I put this in a Crown Royal bag just because I haven't one around. You can put it in a cup. It's basically a chip draw system. So what you have is the color and the shape, all the little figures, and even on here you can see, so the captain has blue minis, and there's one with a circle base, triangle base, square base. You can't quite see it, but a hexagon. So here I've actually drawn black, which is the first officer, and a square, which is, I believe, his radio. I can't remember. Let me look. Yeah, radio officer. So that card would have actually been assigned insomnia over to the radio officer to deal with. So this is just the bag that you use to assign wounds oftentimes, or things of that nature. Let me move over to another crewman. All right, the first officer is going to have a similar card to show you, again, see if I can get her to focus, to just show you the things that they'll be controlling here. So steerage, takes 2, listening to the hydrophone, first aid. This is the app, and I've got my phone out. I'll be showing you the app in a little bit. The first officer, whoever's playing the first officer, is very busy and in control of the app. They'll be inputting orders, and they will be reporting things they find on there, along with the app having music and sound effects and a lot of cool visual stuff going on. We'll get to that in 1 second. Everything else is the same. You're going to have first watch, second watch. You have their skill abilities that are shown on here. Okay, I won't go into what all those are. Same system of assigning things. The first officer, he or she does have event cards that they'll draw from there, and the app will tell them when to do that. They've got their first aid tokens where they can send their crew to move around in a mobilization phase, and then they can get an order to actually treat someone that's wounded. Over here, just wound cards for specific things. So electrocution, you've got fire, you've got poison gas, yes, the fumes and the batteries, and there was corrosive things on a ship. So you can end up with sections of the sub that are very hazardous. You also have combat wounds or battle wounds. So that is what's going on with this individual, but let me show you the app. We're going to see if I can get this to focus in right. We'll see how long I spend showing you this. And this is also pre-production. Some functions are turned off, and not everything's final. So when you come in, you hit play. This gives you a rundown of the mission. This is a hunt. So in the final game, there's going to be multiple different types of missions. I don't know what they all are, but hunt is what you're doing here, which means you were going out into the sea lanes and trying to sink a large amount of tonnage of Allied vessels that were headed into England. All right, so you're on this page here, and you will see, very crucial, let me move this down a bit. All right, so this is simply fast forward. This is a regular clock that's rolling around. Your watches will change every 6 hours. There'll be sound effects that let you know, or bell chimes that let you know what's going on. You have an armament area, so you can see your subs, or your torpedoes, your 88 millimeter cannon that's on the kind of on the bow area, and your 22 millimeter. I think I called it a 20 millimeter earlier, that were used for anti-aircraft. These show your different tubes. So there's 4 in the bow, 1 aft, and you actually, when you get ready for combat, you have to flood them, and then you use I think it's called the TDC. It's a tracking computer that they used and that you have, and then you'll fire your torpedoes. Let me go back. You'll get repairs. Things will break down, sometimes just normal wear and tear, and you'll get a bar that comes in here. It'll tell you if it's an easy repair, green, middle, yellow, very difficult, red. Then you have to pledge in guys to go fix it. So the captain issues an order, mobilize, basically go to this whatever section's in trouble, and then I need a repair on torpedo tube, or you even got toilets that overflow. And you'll have to have those orders will be given, the actions will be taken on the board, and then once you say, normally it would say, okay, they're in position, and you then hit OK, basically saying yes, everything that needed to be done on the board's been done, and you'll start it, and then that repair just starts. It's like a bar that just slowly fills, and it takes a while to fix stuff. You can't see it because there's nothing going on here. Instruments. Well, first we would put some guys up on, so we would be on the surface. The subs in World War II were not underwater all the time. They were more like a submersible ship that would just submerge when needed. So I'm going to put 4 guys. These guys would have been orders that put them up on the bow, up on the conning tower, and they would be looking for things. Now you have 2 options here. One, you can have it on like a gyroscope, I think is what they call it, which is as if you're actually looking, and we're not going to be able to get it to do, but it's as if you're actually looking at your phone like it's a set of binoculars. And you can do zooming in, zooming out, and I need to turn that off. Yeah, gyroscope, because it won't work for what we're doing here. You literally got to stand up and rotate around. All right, now when we go in and take a look, you can see, so there's the front of the sub, and I'm looking as I move off into the degrees to the east. And you can just look around, look around, look around, and there's the rear of the sub and so on. If there's something in view that you're going to attack, this highlights and you can click on it. So this works very nice. You can see your ships. You can figure out kind of which is, is that a patrol ship that might attack me, or is that just a supply ship loaded with, food, guns, ammo, whatnot. Whoops, sorry, I went in. This is your depth marker. Let me back up so I can show you how. All right, so that's what you're doing here. You also do have your batteries, and this is kind of what your repair line looks like as well. And then your sextant, if you've got guys up observing, one of the things they can do is do a sextant check. Yeah, he's in position, and this is actually the quadrant that you start on, and when I get to the Navigator I'll show you. But he's checking your position so you can compare it to your strategic map. Works great. It's awesome. It's a good way to just track things around. So this other side real quick is your speed. When we get over to the Chief Engineer's board, you'll see where it's going to be represented there as well. But here's where you would just set your speed. All right, and so this would have been the orders given. There's guys that have been put into the engine room to handle all the work that needs to be done to run the engines. And then you would just say, yeah, is the crew in position? The first officer is going to verify all that on the board. Boom, and now we're actually moving. So then you have your course, all right, which is just the compass. So you can turn it like this and just set your course, and then you can get finer and just go little by little, if I can get my finger on it right. So this would be a course 325, and you can see how you're in relation to north. And again, you would have to have someone in the control room that's doing the actual action of changing the course, steering the ship. Yes, are they in position? First officer would verify, wouldn't hit it until they are. And they are, and now we even have a course. Now right now we're on the surface. You can see we are on the surface, but if we were to dive, we would set the depth of the dive. So you can see the hazardous locations if we dive deep. And we would then, okay, and of course it would have had to issue orders, and guys would have to be in the right position, and they would have to put their tokens on. And if we had somebody managing ballast, boom, off we go, and now we're out of depth. Also, our speed reduces greatly when you're under the water. So along the way, you will get orders, like this order popped up. So not only is it verifying my depth, but if you would have seen a little earlier, we've got a very minor lightning failure. This is where the light bulb literally went out in this case, crew quarters. It would tell you which part of the sub. And you have to place, there's a yellow token that has a broken light bulb. You place it in that area. And then any crew that are working in that area, it requires an additional sailor. I always think of it as like they're holding a flashlight. So what you would want to do is get somebody working on that. There's extra light bulbs, believe it or not. It's a simulation in a toolbox, and you would have somebody fixing said problem. But you will get problems like this that are very minor, and then some that are horrible, like a hull breach, which we'll get to when we get to the Navigator. There's a way to operate that. So there is your app. It has wonderful sound effects, and it's really works extremely polished and well, even at this state. All right, we're on the chief engineer. So again, everything's the same with your watches and with assigning people to the jobs and when they flip. As long as you can get rid of one of the tokens here, and then these guys would be on watch. Now there's something a little bit different. Let me reach across. So if they're working on an issue, so let's say this mechanic, first of all, he has the repair marker which matches, and let's say we're in a peaceful time and we're not out getting ready to attack anybody. It'd be a good time to work on something. So he could go and work on the engines or work on that lighting failure or whatever. If you have the bar graph, it's going to be on your app. The first officer is going to tell you, yeah, they're still working, they're still working, they're still working. And this could be perpetual. You might have them working on it and you have a watch change and it shifts down. Basically, it's a tag team. The new guy comes in, takes over the job, and continues the repair. Now, you could stop that. The captain could change that and say, hey, we got a new priority. But generally, that's how that'll work. And then if the first officer were to come in and say, hey, repair is completed, you just switch it over and it's as if he had a normal order. And then again, the nice thing is if the watch changes, you get to dump one of these orders tokens. What happens is you end up with, you're wanting them, unless you get a real lull, which they're all lulls in the action, you're going to have a lot of these tokens up and you start struggling on what you can do and what you want to do and what you need a specialist to do. Your markers here are actually serviced on the app, but you're going to have them correspond so that everybody else at the table can look over and see, okay, we set depth at 35 or whatever I had it at. We're at half speed. So those markers will correspond with the app, but the app is where things are inputted in and changed. That's there just as a reminder. You have toolboxes. One's supposed to be gray and green. Again, pre-production. I can't tell the difference. I'm getting old. There are then toolboxes positioned on the ship. I actually put the tokens on them as well because they're different. So you have special things like a gas mask for if there's a corrosive leak, a fire extinguisher for when there's a fire. Yeah, there's going to be a fire on a sub. Not good. Wire, which is for electrical problems. And then on the other toolbox, I have those replacement light bulbs and a pump. So because you're going to be moving your toolboxes around the ship to fix things when something goes wrong. You have the typical card. It says all the jobs and all the things they can do. You have all the different failures that can happen. You have the different level of tokens. And again, these tokens all have the orders jobs on the back side. Then you have a hatch, and the hatch is like sometimes you surface and you need to vent, or you're closing a hatch and nobody can even go in there. So, chief engineer. All right, Navigator. A lot of things going on with the Navigator. We're going to come back to the strategic board. I'm going to show you that in a little bit. We're going to stick on this board for a second, and then I'm even going to show you a little puzzle you do near the end when there is a hull breach. So first, everything else is the same here. Your different watches, you flip, you sign your orders, any cards that were to come in, wounds, special events, whatnot would be placed down here. You can see their specialties. All right, you have a lot of weapons things, and they're your primary observers. So you have a tactical board, which I will zoom in on here in a little bit. You will also see that you have a sub where you will end up orienting your location on this board along with the fleet. Maybe I don't need to zoom in since I'm picking these up and showing you. So this would be a fleet, but you don't know the particular ships yet. But you would get a bearing on it. And the way you always want to approach a fleet is as if you are the long part of a T. When you fire your torpedoes, you want to fire them in a way that's going to have the greatest chance of hitting, so you want to fire broadside. What happens is as you get closer, you can identify the ships. So you have defense frigates and things, all right? So ships that are protecting your merchant vessels, and you will actually have merchant vessels listed on there. Once you get close enough, you can identify them. It'll tell you it's a merchant vessel. You'll pick these up blind, and then you actually show their tonnage. And the higher the tonnage is where you're getting your victory points, at least in the hunt, where you're wanting to sink high tonnage targets. So you may see that you've got, sorry, my lighting. So you got a 2,000 ton, but it's a frigate. Now this guy's going to do some damage to you. Once you know what they are, you then place them in like so. Each square is a mile. So once you know what they are, you're approaching. The guys that can do damage to you, obviously, are the frigates and things that are defending, and you got to watch out for those guys. All right, they sunk me multiple times. Then you got your food track. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in real quick, show you the food track, and you'll see a little bit of that tactical board. All right, so you can see the tactical board a little bit better. You can see your approach. You can see the squares, each representing a mile. You're going to have food that's on the ship ready to go. Of course, during the early parts of your mission, you got tons of food, and you're going to take the food that's up and you're going to put it down into these like bowling pins, and that's when you flip them over and find out if they're bread or onions or wurst or tinned fish or potatoes or whatnot. Now, once a day, every 24 hours, you want to feed your crew once, at least once. If you feed them just one item, their morale is going to drop by 1. If you feed them a combination, and this card, if I can get it here, will show you, see if I can get it to focus, there you go. You can see the combinations that you can get will give you better morale. If you have a 3 food combo, you're going to go up 2, I think it is. Might be 1. So you're going to improve your morale. If you just feed them a 2 food combo, they stay neutral. It doesn't hurt the morale, doesn't help the morale. And if you, like I said, if you only feed them 1, the morale goes down by 1. So you've got these food combos. What you're doing is pairing them as long as they're adjacent to each other. You can pair them together, and this observer here can go down into the crew quarters and he can prepare a meal. It's a pretty minor thing, but you want to make sure, the captain wants to make sure that the crew's eating, again, at least once in the day. You'd be surprised how many times I would forget. And then you get a little notice, has the crew eaten? And if not, you're going to take a penalty for it. The other thing that's real neat on the food is that if as you go through all of your food, when it's all gone, it's all put off to the side. Your food's not gone. What you have to do is then take care of spoilage. So the first thing that spoils is meat. So you go through and you remove all the regular meat, and then you reset this up here. But now you don't have that ingredient. You don't have the meat. And then the second time you go through, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Maybe it's eggs or something. So then the eggs are gone. And so food's going to get more and more scarce. The crew's going to get grumpier and grumpier. So the navigator's taking care of food, tactical map, strategic map, and a lot of the observing and use of the sextant and weapons. All right, some tools of the navigator. Now, when I first looked at this and when I received the game, I thought, oh boy, this looks technical. It's not bad at all. First, you have a strategic map. I'll zoom in a little bit, but you've got little quadrants. You've got where you start. I'll zoom in. And whenever you get the first officer doing a sextant check, the navigator does the sextant, the first officer gets the coordinates on the app, he'll tell you where you're at. What you do is plot your movement on the map. You can even get some dead reckoning if you're on the surface, how many hours it's going to take you to go from location to location. I'll show you in a little bit. And if you're submerged, it takes you a lot longer if you're submerged. And you only got 18 hours of battery life, so you got to come up anyway. So, all right, you can even see a little bit of my erasure marks. So, I'm going to come in, and I'm going to have to move in on this without looking at the screen, so hopefully I'm not blocking it too much. So you're going to start in AN 95. So you make a little circle in the middle of that. Now let's assume or pretend that I want to go to AN 45. So I've got my 2 points. All right, that's what I want to move to. I bring on my ruler, and I'm going to draw a line from the center of one to the center of another. You can also see if I was traveling that far, that's going to take me 18 hours on the surface. So I know about how long that trip, that's not working, I know about how long that trip is going to take me, so I can adjust. I know I've got time to maybe prepare a meal or do whatever I got to do. But the second thing I need to know is, okay, so the navigator's figured out a course or figured out a direction or a zone we want to go to. What's the course? What's the navigator going to tell the first officer to put in, or what's the captain going to put in and then have entered into the app? So your first thing is your protractor. You can't see it see-through. You're going to have 0 at the top. You come over and there's a little hashtag you probably can't see. You're going to put it right on that center dot. You're then going to look and you're going to follow the line up to what it says on here. And I'm not close enough to see, what is it, maybe 316, 317. I'm not close enough to actually pick it up. So if it's 317, all right, you would read whatever it says up here. That is the course that you're going to take. All right, that is your course, and it would be inputted. It would be inputted into the app, and you would start then moving in that direction. All right, so now the attack dial. So our observers are up on the conn tower. They've reported to the first officer, basically gets it on the app that there is a contact. It will give you the bearing, the distance, and the course of those ships. The first thing you're going to do, see if I can get this in, is your U-boat course. So remember, we're at 317, so you've got it oriented toward the top. We're at 317. You're going to rotate this around, lining it up with the outer dial, which says course. So 317 is about there. I may not be exact because I'm looking through the camera. So that's the course of the sub on the green dial. Second, we're going to do the bearing of the target that we're going after. And let's just say the bearing is, I wrote a note down here from one of mine, the bearing is 28. So we're going to set the bearing, if I can get it zoomed in, on this dial right here. So the bearing is 28, roughly. And remember, we're 5 miles out. So you can see we're much further than what they're showing 1, 2, and 3. We're further out. Then you've got to get the course of the contact that you're on, and you can see it's written on the black here. And again, my note on this one was that the course was 40 degrees. So that's going to be this, and it's going to now line up with the white dial. Now here's the problem: as I turn these, the tension's kind of up, so everything will kind of shift a little bit. And I need to get this set at 40 degrees. So here's the course of the ships that I'm looking to attack. Let me make sure I've got these right. U-boat still looks right. Bearing is still correct. All right, so this is the direction I'm sailing in. That's the direction that the targets are sailing in, and if I pointed my finger at them, they're over here. What this allows you to do is take this information, so remember it's 5 miles, we would go to the tactical board over there, and I would realize that my sub is traveling this location and that the ships I'm going to be attacking are right here, but they are actually at this angle and they're steaming in that location there. And so it allows you to set on the tactical board how the sub is in position to the allied shipping that you're looking to sink. And then you just, on the tactical board, you adjust the miles based on the distance. And at this point in time is how you'll know as the navigator what you need to do to attack. And it'll even tell you, you want to do a broadside attack on the shipping. So I would want to come in from this angle, or I'd want to come in from this angle. And I'm already, let's just say, south of this subgroup. So this would have been one of those, just to show you, that's how you run this. But if my course of my sub were to now, I could match course, in which case I'm going to be catching up, but I won't be at the great attack angle, but this would allow me to catch up and follow them. Or I could then move my angle off to the side, and now not only am I, maybe I've caught up, now I want to swing out. And as I swing out, I could then turn around if this makes sense to you. And now I'm going to be coming at them at a broadside angle. So you can see I would need to correct course, maybe follow, close distance, get it down to 3 miles, at which point I might want to angle off one way or the other in order to come in and cross that T. Hopefully that makes sense. This is neat. This feels real, and when you're in pressure, I blew this once. And I was like, oh my God, what's this? What is that? Where's their bearing? And you're the one that has to get it down on the tactical map to then tell the captain kind of to give orders of how to direct the sub. Technical, not overly technical, fun. And this was very enjoyable. All right, this is a puzzle. It's a technical puzzle of the sub itself. It's like a technical draft drawing or whatever. So what you have is the flip side of this are just these blank pieces over here. And they're different, almost like Ubongo shapes, but they're all these kind of L-shaped things. What will happen is there's a hull breach. You'll have, 2 minutes to repair it. Your whole team of players can come over here, and these are flipped over on the blind side. And if you've got a hull breach in the bow, you've got to put 3 sections together. So 3 sections would be, there's 1 section of the bow, there's 2 sections of the bow, and there's the 3rd section of the bow. So you would have to just put together that much of the bow. You wouldn't have to worry about these, but you got to kind of figure out what's what to put it together. If you get the puzzle done, meanwhile there's a counter going off on the app and the music and the tension and there's bells going off. The tension ramps up. You get this put together. You can have one person doing it or you can put them all on it. But you've got to task them to go work on fixing the hull breach. The hull breach gets fixed. You've plugged it. You welded it. You did whatever you got to do. You're good to go. First officer puts it into the app and you're good. If not, you're dead. So, but this was kind of I liked it. It was a neat aspect. I did have one of the players felt like, okay, it's a puzzle. I get that it's a technical thing that we're going to do, but they thought it wasn't as thematic as the rest of the game. So, to each their own. I wanted to give both sides. I like it. I like the little look of it. And just putting something together, you actually get pretty good at it. And to me, that feels like you're a seasoned crew that you can seal hull breaches pretty quick as well.
All right, we're back. You've seen all the different roles. This is a simulation. And like all great, good wargaming simulations, you get the feel of the sub. There were times when everything was hunky-dory. There was a couple little problems and repairs going on, but we're just sailing. We're on the surface. It felt serene. Plenty of time to get the things done. The crew's eating well. And then all of a sudden, we have a contact. Boom, we're now moving in and we're deciding how are we going to overtake and what's our angle going to be. And there's a lot of chatter. And all of a sudden, there's not enough time to get everything done. And the pressure's on. And you're getting into the position you want to be and then trying to very tactically and stealthily just drop about 8 to 10 meters below the surface, periscopes up. Where are we at? You might even want to try to slow things down before we know that's where they are, but you know what? We're about to have a shift change. Let's rest the crew. Let's get some food. We'll keep them in sight. And then when we go in for the attack, we'll be rested. And we can have all the right people in the key positions because you're going to have your engineermen or engineers running the engines and getting ready to do the ballast, and you're going to have your torpedo guys running over and taking care of the bow torpedoes because you're in a position, and all of a sudden it gets crazy. And then a frigate spots you, an alarm goes off, and they're coming in on you, and you're like, shoot, we can't even get this done. Dive, dive, dive. Then they're dropping depth charges on you, and there's booms going off, and I would get discombobulated, and then hull breaches start to happen, and then that's not good. In the midst of this, the crapper, the toilet goes bad. What? First officer yells out, we've got a problem in the toilet. We got a problem in the toilet. I don't even care about the toilet. We're trying not to sink here. Hey, just letting you know there's a problem with the toilet backing up. Well, that could be a problem. More than once, we just dove deep, forgot about the ships that we were about to attack, moved off, found a safe location. There's a hydrophone. I love the hydrophone. Literally, when you're submersed, you've got this little like underwater microphone. You throw it out, and the first officer moves it around as if it's, you know, the compass clock or whatever, and then he'll go, okay, there's no contacts, and then you surface. You do not want to forget to check that. You'll surface right into like a patrol or a frigate, and you'll just get nailed. But I loved it. You can even track underwater below periscope depth and move into your position, and then come up, not breach, and fire. Very nice tactical feel. I felt submersed. If that sounds weird, but even the players playing would get a little quiet. Oh, we're underwater now. Okay, so you've seen the different roles. The app had, we're told flat out, there's some things on here that aren't turned on. You're only got a hunt scenario, so I know there'll be more hunts. And they even said when you hear the airplane, it's just the sound effect right now. Scares that airplanes come through. I'm like, oh my God. And then I'm like, okay, we would probably be getting strafed right now, but apparently that part hasn't been turned on in the app yet. So there's even cooler things to come that seem very frightful. But then later on when I'm playing with the crew, I'm like, forget the sound of the airplane. Don't worry about it. That part's not turned on. Otherwise we would be diving right now, which is key, because one of my favorite things is everything's breaking down. I would sail out into the middle of nowhere, surface, full stop, and sit there. Start repairs, handle my watches, feed the crew, and just take the time and get everything back under control. And then go out hunting again. And one other thing, mines. Oh my. I thought I'd be real cool and I got too close to the English coastline. Hello. Kept hitting mines. Hull breach. It's probably about it. You've had a look at the board. Again, I'm going to say, if you enjoy a simulation, this is in the simulation realm. You go from, there's not too much going on, to, oh my God, there's too much going on. Okay? And I would imagine that's exactly how it was. And so perfect capture at this pre-production phase. They've got it. I know there'll be some more tweaks, but it definitely is evocative of what my reading, and I haven't read as much on the U-boat side of things. I know about the air war and the ground war and in the East and the invasion in Normandy, but I know enough that they have captured what this wolfpack hunting in the U-boat was like, and spot on. So if that's your thing, go check out their Kickstarter when it comes on for a lot more information. It's the Chief, Bonding with Board Games.